Hello and welcome. How are we doing today? I'm Baka, or Andrew Dragonoff, and I am a huge anime nerd. And today, I'm going to bring you in the next episode in my review series on Fate Grand Order, episode 20. So for today's review, I do want to go over a couple of different ideas and concepts that are going in either in the Fate universe or the general folklore that is behind some of our characters. Also, oh my god, the production value. So, we're going to go through and talk about a couple of these different elements in today's episode. So to start off my review, I just want to talk about the production value that went into this episode. Holy cow, was it stellar. And we really got to see every character that's still present in this battle have their moment in the limelight. Whether it's the old mountain king, Hassan, literally giving the concept of death to Tiamat, or this quiet moment that we get between Ishtar and Ereshkigal after she uses her noble phantasm and literally burns away after seeing flowers in her underworld. Or the awesome and epic moment of hearing Mash go, "Lord Camelot," and that fantastic imagery of the walls of Camelot appearing, right next to Merlin calling upon the Gardens of Avalon to give a path for Fujimaru to run up and take a very, well, at least what I think is a special dagger and drive it into Tiamat to, how shall I put this lightly, break the rules of divinity. Or the return of Gilgamesh the Archer and the Gates of Babylon, producing unlimited noble phantasms, until the final point where he pulls out what is the base of all noble phantasms, and for lack of a better term, goes death ray on Tiamat, finally defeating her. And the sound design, how so many of these attacks are not huge explosions of boom, pow, crack. No, they're these big thumbing bass beats. These sounds that are almost unworldly, that can shake you to the core, because at the end of the day, they're all magical based. We don't know how they would exactly sound. It'd be nothing like the current combat we know, and the closest thing we even get to that is when Gil is firing the noble phantasms or Ishtar is firing her gems. For the most part, it's stark contrast of silence during an attack that emphasizes how powerful it is, combined with the skipped frames that they occasionally do to show the power of every blow. And overall, it's just fantastic. All in all, this episode is a complete package from a production standpoint. It sounds great, looks beautiful, and does every character right. And even includes some folklore, which is something we're going to delve into next. Now, Mesopotamian folklore is an interesting topic for the simple fact of it is the basis of so many of the stories that we know and love today. Even the tale of Gilgamesh is part of the Mesopotamian folklore, and Tiamat herself is one of the creators in that folklore. And we see reference to the 11 offspring. Now, those 11 offspring have names that I cannot pronounce in a million years, but they're the basis for a lot of the monsters and beasts that we see coming up in other things. One of them is literally the Hydra, and another one's a beast man, one's a fish monster. There's all these different offspring. And one of the things that I find interesting in Fate Grand Order is we see the 11 offspring not in their unique guises as they would be, but as uniform. And I think that plays into what Tiamat is supposed to be at this point. Tiamat is trying to create a new universe, one that she will not be forgotten, as we see when she talks to Fujimaru at the end of the episode. And even then, he tells her, "You will not be forgotten, you will always be remembered," and stories like this will tell you, we're remembering her right now. We're remembering Tiamat, the ultimate creator and destroyer. It's interesting that through this whole battle sequence that we've had over the past several episodes since Tiamat has appeared, everything has been about buying time, about getting that extra step forward so somebody else can come in and do the finishing blow. It's things like when we see Tiamat literally using the negagenesis, the idea of creating a new universe. And who's the only one that can go in? But our protagonist, Fujimaru. And initially I thought, why? Why is he unique? And then you have to remember something. So far, at least from what I've been able to gather, because again, I've not played Fate Grand Order, he's always been willing to understand his opponents. He's been always willing to stop and try to bring them to his side. He sees an opponent as a friend. And he's somebody with that mindset that would be able to go into that nega universe. As somebody that would go, no, I will remember you, Tiamat, no matter what happens. Because at the end of the day, I want to be your friend. He would not be able to be removed. And he gets his guidance from Merlin, the ultimate guider of all things. Because remember, in this episode, we also get him using Excalibur. And you might go, wait, why is Merlin using Excalibur? Oh, wait, that's right. Merlin's the one who taught Arthur how to fight. How to fight with a sword. Now, Saber, or Artoria Pendragon, in the Fate universe, is the most powerful saber we know of. And Merlin's her teacher, so of course he'd know how to fight with a sword. But all of this is playing into this idea of rebirth and death and growth. As in Mesopotamian folklore, it is something that is seen quite frequently of one god failing and another god coming up behind him. Or, in the case of Ishtar, Ereshkigal, where both of their character designs are familiar and mirrors of each other because they're sisters. One who went to the underworld to be punished, the other who came to save her and ended up taking her place and ruling underworld. All of this plays together in the Fate Grand universe, in the ways that these different characters are interacting with each other, and how all of this folklore built up to that final moment where Gilgamesh fulfills his role from his tale again, defeating the creator god trying to create a new world, unleashing the power of humanity to destroy her. And all we get is a quiet moment afterwards, with Fujimaru talking to her, realizing that as much as he wanted to be Tiamat's friend, he came into it too late. So lore comes together in the Fate universe to tell our stories and give our heroic spirits and servants their powers. And it's interesting because we see the return of Archer Gilgamesh in this episode. Not the caster that we've seen through the rest of the series where he's not as arrogant, he's a leader to his people. No, we get the one that will just sit there with arms crossed, throwing noble phantasms, basically infinitely numbered, at his opponents, each one of them as powerful as some of the other attacks we've already seen. And he doesn't care. He's opened his gates of Babylon to destroy whatever is in front of him, and laugh at them as he does. Because, well, it's Gilgamesh, it's what he does. And then you contrast that to Merlin, who makes the joke of always wanting to say a cheesy line, and then also going back to him being able to use a sword extremely well, and how he jokes about, hey, guess what? I trained King Arthur. Yep, this trick got her too. I love those little nods. And it's great because almost every character gets these little moments like that throughout the entire thing where they're just showing off, so to say. Whether it's Ishtar going and fighting and actually getting hurt as a goddess, getting stabbed by one of the 11. Or Mash fighting desperately to protect Fujimaru and doing everything in her power to help him. every character has their moment. And the one that I thought was most interesting was Fujimaru's. As he's running up to defeat Timon, he got a gift from Gil, that little dagger. And I have a very, very strong feeling that that dagger is a prototype of something. There's a dagger in the Fate universe that is known as Rule Breaker. Now, Rule Breaker does literally what its name says. It can defy the laws of magic, time, and several other things as well, including overriding the master-servant relationship in a Grail War, allowing a servant that was under control of one master to be transferred to another. Now, the dagger that Fujimaru holds is not quite as elegant as Rule Breaker, but definitely has elements of it. And I think that's what he used to kill Timon, or at least weaken her to the point that Gilgamesh could go and do it. And it makes perfect sense for Gilgamesh's character to have that dagger and to give it to Fujimaru. He holds the prototypes to every noble phantasm that exists. And his noble phantasm is the base of all noble phantasms. So it only makes sense that we see Fujimaru, an outsider to this world, go rushing up a path created by Merlin, while being protected by Mash, and the quiet moment between Ishtar and Ereshkigal, and Hassan still giving the concept of death upon things. And all of it leads up to Fujimaru taking one last leap and making an opening for Gilgamesh to give the killing blow. All working together, all being fantastic. One of the best episodes of any Fate series I've ever seen, and yes, I'm even including Zero and Unlimited Blade Works into that. Just great start to end, whether it starts with the Hassan, the old man on the mountain, giving the concept of death to a goddess of creation, all the way to the quiet moment at the end with Mash and Fujimaru holding hands before the ending. Just a fantastic episode through and through. I loved it. Now, if you can't get enough of me here, you can always catch me on Twitch as well, twitch.tv/EnderDragonoth. If you go into the VODs, you can actually watch me edit this episode today, which is kind of interesting and kind of new, and I might continue doing. Now, Thursday will be my next episode of the old Baka Rancid Cloud series. I don't have a concept for it yet, but I'm sure I'll think of something. And if you want to catch that, make sure you subscribe. If you have any hints, advice, or other things you want to talk about, please leave them down below in the comments. It always does help, and so does liking. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me today, and stay safe.